taking the green train back to the hometown with Uncle Jack. A sudden commotion broke out on the train. When we approached, we found half a person in the restroom. Uncle Jack hurriedly pulled me back to our seats, his face pale. Just as I was about to speak, Uncle Jack raised a finger to his lips, signaling me to be quiet. A few minutes later, the carriage jolted, and the train was forced to stop in the middle of nowhere. Uncle Jack whispered to me, "There's something on the train. Remember, human facial features don't change, and don't use your phone." I had just pulled out my phone when Uncle Jack stopped me. He said that nowadays, all phones have self-running background surveillance. If you use your phone, you'll die even faster. I was puzzled. "Uncle Jack, what is that thing? Why can't we use our phones?" Uncle Jack didn't answer my question but changed the subject. He said that thing can mimic humans, but it doesn't have feelings. If you want a trendy term for it, you could call it a replicant, though it's not exactly the same. Replicants aren't necessarily killing machines, but this one is. So if you see someone with lifeless eyes or distorted facial features in the carriage, stay away. I still didn't quite understand. Why does that thing kill people? Logically speaking, even monsters or spirits have their reasons for killing, right? Uncle Jack looked at me, his voice trembling. "That thing, it was just born." I froze, and after a moment, I began to understand. It was like something I had seen before in short videos. If a creature has never existed before, if it's not part of the food chain, that's the worst-case scenario. Because they attack anything around them indiscriminately, it's their way of testing their strength and estimating their place in the food chain. And newborn things are always very timid. That thing would definitely disguise itself first, and it just so happens that it has that ability. This is really tricky. Normally, that thing should start by testing its strength on animals. But the problem is, no animals are allowed on the train. There's only people. But I still didn't understand. What kind of thing can track even phone signals? A weasel? A tapir? A bear? No, that's not right. Those creatures that often appear in horror stories might be able to mimic humans, but they don't have that kind of ability. Moreover, the things in those horror stories are known for their brutality, and the victims always die with twisted faces. But the corpse in the restroom earlier, the cut was so smooth it looked like a mirror. Not even a printing press's paper cutter could make such a clean cut. I swallowed hard, deep in thought, when someone nearby spoke up. "Damn it! This is weird. Why is there no signal? I can't even call the cops." Someone next to him chuckled. "Relax, man. There are security officers on the train." The man nodded and sat back down. Uncle Jack's face turned grim. He grabbed me and immediately left the carriage. We moved through several carriages, finally confirming we were far enough away from that guy. The carriage started to get crowded, and we stopped. Uncle Jack found a spot in the crowd and pulled me to sit down. His face was ghostly pale. His fists clenched so tightly that his fingernails were nearly digging into his palms. I was also shaken. In my impression, Uncle Jack was incredibly brave, the kind of guy who could sleep alone in a cemetery. But now, if he wasn't about to piss his pants, he was pretty close. Uncle Jack glanced at me a few times, opened his mouth as if to speak, but said nothing. We sat there for a while, and I looked at Uncle Jack. "Uncle Jack, I'm gonna go take a leak." Uncle Jack grabbed me, his voice icy. "No, you can't go to places with few people. Do it right here, in a water bottle. I'll cover for you." I looked at Uncle Jack. "Isn't that a bit much?" Uncle Jack stared at me intently. "If you don't want to die, don't go to empty places. Pee or crap, do it right here." I couldn't argue with Uncle Jack, so I did as he said. Just as I finished, I heard a commotion in the carriage. Uncle Jack and I followed the crowd. The man who had made the call earlier was in the restroom. He had been sliced cleanly in half. "Everyone, back to your seats. We'll handle this." 2 train guards arrived and began dispersing the crowd. The restroom was sealed off, leaving only a narrow path alongside it. Those who returned to their seats began to whisper amongst themselves. "There's gotta be a murderer on this train, right? This is brutal. 2 people have been killed already. I swear, I'm getting off at the next stop." Someone next to him disagreed. "No way I'm getting off. If that guy gets off too, it'll be even more dangerous." Many people thought that made sense, but some weren't worried. "Relax. It's modern times. A killer can't get far. Look, we've got train guards. I bet they'll find him soon. Stop freaking out." The murmurs on the train slowly died down after that. I looked over at Uncle Jack, who kept scanning the surroundings nervously, as if afraid of someone coming. His unusual behavior made me instinctively realize that even the train guards might not be able to handle that thing. I wanted to tell everyone what was happening, but after some thought, I figured there was no point. If this caused a panic, it would only be more dangerous. It might even give that thing an opportunity. Right now, it only dared to act in secluded places like the restroom. If there were chaos, it might go on a rampage. Yet, someone still found a clue. People in the carriage started whispering, not very loudly, but enough for those nearby to hear. Do you think it's not human? Did you see those wounds? Even a paper cutter couldn't make cuts that clean. Some people agreed. Yeah, I don't think it's a murderer. There's no reason to make such a big scene. If it was a killer, one clean hit would be enough. What kind of grudge would make someone cut a person in half? The passengers started discussing this theory, and soon they reached two conclusions. First, a murderer wouldn't do it this way. Cutting someone in half would make a lot of noise. Second, murderers aren't stupid. Doing it this way would waste a lot of time, and even a psychopath wouldn't risk getting caught so easily. So, there's only one possibility for that kind of wounded was something that could slice a person in two with a single strike. Everyone fell silent. If that was true, then it was terrifying. Nobody even knew what that thing was. If it were just a murderer, people would still have faith that the train guards could catch them. But now, Uncle Jack wasn't paying attention to the murmurs. His face was pale, and he was trembling. His eyes flickered back and forth, as if deep in thought. I gave him a light tug, and he snapped back to reality. He sighed. I didn't think it would chase us this far. Realizing he had said too much, Uncle Jack immediately stopped talking. I stared at Uncle Jack, wondering if he was really a good person. This sudden trip home was just too abrupt. We both quit our security jobs without warning, and we hadn't even collected our last 2 weeks' pay. Last night, Uncle Jack came to me in the middle of the night, bought the tickets, and insisted we go home. He said my grandmother was sick. But before boarding, I called my grandmother. She was perfectly fine. At the same time, I saw a news article about our company temporarily shutting down. Mind you, this was a Fortune 500 company. Even though we were just security guards, with no insight into the company's operations, the idea of it shutting down seemed impossible. What struck me the most was how Uncle Jack held onto my phone, double and triple checking the news. Could this trip back home be related to the company? I couldn't figure it out. Uncle Jack looked at me and said, "Stop thinking about it. You won't understand. Not knowing is for your own good." I thought for a moment and accepted his words. After all, since my parents passed away, Uncle Jack had treated me like his own son. I shouldn't doubt Uncle Jack. But soon, the sound of car engines roaring came from outside the train. A group of men in black trench coats hurried onto the train. The bald man in the lead scanned the passengers. "Everyone, stay put and prepare for inspection." The bald man looked around, making sure everyone was back in their seats before nodding in approval. The men in black walked up to each passenger, placing a questionnaire in front of each of us. Someone protested, "Why the hell should I fill this out?" The bald man replied sternly, "For your safety. Something has infiltrated the train." Many people were displeased. "What the hell is it? Explain yourself. If you don't, we're not cooperating." Others questioned, "Who are you people? What right do you have to watch us? Why should we cooperate?" The bald man only uttered 4 cold words. No further comment. The men in black, after distributing the forms, stood still, silently watching everyone's every move. Someone finally snapped and tried to leave. One of the men in black blocked his path without expression. "Please cooperate with the questionnaire." The man ignored him and tried to push past. The black-coated man punched him hard in the gut. The man doubled over like a shrimp, and an elderly man nearby quickly tried to calm him down. "Son, you can't fight them. Look at the way they're standing. They're professionally trained." I looked around curiously. Indeed, their stance was incredibly precise. Everyone was positioned to support one another. It was a tactical formation, something far beyond what our security team had ever done. Clearly, they were part of some special organization, maybe even. Everyone else began to understand. That questionnaire was not optional. But soon, The questions on the form sparked even more discussion. What the hell is this questionnaire? These questions are so weird. How are we supposed to answer? I looked down at the form. The questions were indeed bizarre. Question 1. Which of the following images looks the most delicious? A. A young, beautiful woman. B. A smiling baby. C. A hunched-over old man. D. A cute orange cat. Question 2. Which of the following images looks the most dangerous? A. A young, beautiful woman. B. A smiling baby. C. A hunched-over old man. D. A cute orange cat. Question 3. Which one of the following is human? A. A strange man with octopus tentacles for a tongue. B. A beautiful woman with scales growing on her nose. C. A strong man with crab pincers for ears. D. A hunched, deformed man with skin completely burned and hideously scarred. I wanted to see how Uncle Jack was answering, but the man in black reached out to block my view. No talking or peeking. I sighed and chose D, and D as my answers. After all, humans aren't supposed to be food. As for the second question, I really didn't know what to pick. But cats can scratch people, so I chose that. As for the third question, it made me suspicious. Uncle Jack had said that human facial features don't change. So even though D was the most terrifying, it was probably the right answer. After the forms were collected, the train started moving again. The atmosphere in the carriage was suffocating. Those men in black remained standing, watching us closely. Many passengers were still unhappy, but no one dared to speak out. The bizarre questionnaire left many people confused. What were those men in black planning to do? And more importantly, what exactly was that thing? Just from the questions alone, it was clear that thing was anything but simple. The air was tense for a long time until a little girl finally couldn't hold back and began to cry. One of the men in black came over. I watched as he pulled a stun gun out of his pocket and aimed it at the woman next to the girl. I was stunned. What the hell was going on? But in the next second, my scalp went numb. On that woman's pale face, a third eye appeared, not like the ones you see in myths. It grew horizontally right between her two eyes. Before the man in black could pull the trigger, the woman opened her mouth. It opened far wider than any human mouth should. Then a deafening blast rang out, and everyone clutched their ears. My vision went black, a piercing noise leaving me dizzy and nauseous. The woman vanished in that instant. The man in black looked around, then whispered to the little girl, "Shh, don't make a sound. It'll kill you." The train car fell into a dead silence. No one dared to breathe. The strange scene just now left everyone feeling like they were on the edge of death. But some couldn't hold it in. Several women started sobbing. "Are we going to die here?" Their husbands tried to console them. "It's gonna be okay. There are so many of us. That thing wouldn't dare do anything." Soon the train's broadcast came on. "To ensure passenger safety, all passengers, please proceed to carriages 6, 7, and 8. We will provide effective protection for everyone," the broadcast announced. Uncle Jack and I were already in carriage 7. From the carriages, on either side, people began trickling in, escorted by the men in black as if they were prisoners. I frowned. The situation on the train was too hard to judge. Were these men in black good or bad? I'd seen enough movies about giant corporations sacrificing civilians for the sake of research projects. These men in black reminded me at least 70% of the Umbrella Corporation's security teams. Uncle Jack patted me on the shoulder. "Stop overthinking. They're probably good guys. If they weren't, they would have just cleared out the train. No need for all this hassle." I nodded, thinking Uncle Jack had a point, but not everyone agreed. Many people believed the questionnaire was the last resort. Clearly, it had failed, and that's why everyone was being gathered together. Some people whispered, "What if they plan to kill us all?" That one question sent a ripple of panic through the crowd. Nobody wanted to put their lives in someone else's hands, but the intimidating presence of the men in black kept everyone seated. Soon, someone raised a demand. "Fine, you can monitor us, but we want to call the police. Let the train guards handle it. Only then will we cooperate." The bald leader nodded and motioned for someone to bring the train guards over. When they arrived, they explained, "There's an unknown danger on the train. These people are here to protect us. Please trust them. The carriages are now under their control. That finally shut everyone up. The men in black also nodded, thanking the guards. Passengers started discussing the next plan. Let's get off at the next stop. This is too creepy. Everyone agreed, but when the train reached the next station, it didn't stop. Some people started protesting. We're at the station. Why aren't we stopping? Soon, the speakers crackled to life, addressing everyone's concerns. Due to special circumstances, this train will not be stopping at any stations. The train will stop only at its final destination, where you will be provided with return tickets. That announcement sent the carriage into a frenzy. A man with glasses completely broke down. Why can't we get off? I have work tomorrow, damn it. One of the men in black patiently explained, It's for your safety. If that thing gets out, many people will die. The man with glasses suddenly snapped. To hell with that. What if I lose my job? I'm not even afraid of being poor. Why would I be afraid of dying? The anger spread, and with a nod from the bald leader, the men in black immediately subdued the man with the stun gun. Everyone's emotions were temporarily suppressed. Shortly after, a train attendant came by, apologizing and offering food. She began slowly taking orders for the food, but Uncle Jack leaned in and whispered to me, Be careful when you eat. There might be something wrong. I nodded. After she finished the count, the train continued moving, and everyone whispered about what the hell was happening. And who exactly were these men in black? Some bold people even started calculating if they could escape past them. The atmosphere grew more and more suffocating, like the calm before a storm. About an hour later, the train came to a halt. The people on board erupted, Damn it, let me off! I want off this train! We apologize, but this stop is for meal delivery only. Food will be brought to each of you shortly. Please do not wander around. The voice of the man in black was icy but polite. Then someone shouted, They're only using stun guns! They can't kill us! If we all rush out together, they can't stop us. That one shout was like a spark to gasoline, and the entire carriage surged forward, desperate to escape. There weren't that many men in black, but the train's aisle was narrow. A few of them standing there turned into a human wall. A bunch of disorganized people couldn't break through. Uncle Jack pulled me to the side, making sure we didn't get swept up in the chaos. I understood. That thing was definitely hiding in the crowd. Now that conflict had broken out, who knew what it would do? If it had some kind of reactive instinct, it might just start killing indiscriminately. Suddenly, someone screamed from within the crowd. Murder! They're killing people! The men in black are killing people. The crowd scattered quickly, and the men in black frowned deeply. Even though they were armed with stun guns, those weapons weren't lethal. That scream was likely from that thing, trying to provoke everyone. But no one paid attention to that detail. After all, the thing's mimicry was pretty clumsy, anyone with half a brain could tell. After the crowd dispersed, there was a corpse lying on the ground, cleanly sliced in two. The wound was so perfectly smooth it was like looking into a mirror. You could even see the texture of the flesh. The sight made my skin crawl. That thing was terrifying. It could slice someone in half without anyone noticing. But why do that? What was the point? I quickly realized. That thing was just born not long ago was it practicing its killing technique? If that were true, then once it killed enough people, it might evolve into something unstoppable. That's why the men in black were trying to keep it contained, especially since it could mimic people if it escaped into a big city. It would be nearly impossible to catch. The men in black immediately went on high alert, inspecting each passenger's clothes. But strangely, there was no trace of blood on anyone. The atmosphere in the train grew even heavier. An invisible enemy. How could anyone not be terrified? Without the men in black even saying anything, people started huddling together. Seats meant for 3 were now squeezed with 4 or 5. But they didn't feel crowded at all. They just clung together tightly. After all, the men in black had said that when everyone was together, the chances of dying were smaller. In fact, even around each of the men in black, there were people gathered. The stun guns in their hands added an extra sense of security. 2 of the men in black silently dealt with the corpse, and the attendants brought out the food. Normally, after seeing a dead body, no one would have much of an appetite, but the food looked almost irresistibly delicious. Uncle Jack and I inspected the food carefully, found nothing suspicious, and then devoured it eagerly. We ate with such speed and hunger that the plates were cleared in no time. It was the most delicious food I had ever tasted. I even wanted a second helping, but the men in black collected all the meal trays and sealed them in transparent plastic bags. It seemed like they were going to run some kind of experiment. Meanwhile, outside the train, there was more movement. Another group of men in black appeared outside, gathering the 3 bodies they had found and incinerating them together. Thick, black smoke billowed outside, casting a grim shadow. Some people began to panic. Are those bodies infected with something? Uncle Jack and I kept silent. By now, the train car felt more like a prison. At that moment, the bald man walked up to us. Come on, follow us. Uncle Jack and I were led to a separate carriage. The bald man sat down in a chair, while several men in black stood around us, watching intently. Before the bald man even spoke, Uncle Jack gave me a bitter smile. Kid, I didn't want you to know about any of this. But now, you're caught up in it too. I was confused, but soon I started connecting the dots with some of the rumors I had heard. Our company wasn't just an internet giant, it spanned multiple fields. Some people said that the technology now could create strange things. When they talked about it, they always hinted but never said it outright. But thinking back, it probably had to do with biological experiments, and most likely included the latest AI technology. Of course, these were just rumors. No one really knew the truth. Uncle Jack turned to the bald man and began to speak. Uncle Jack was supposed to be on the night shift last night. When he was patrolling alone, he found something strange. There was blood in the hallway of the second basement floor. He had always been bold. Anyone else would have called the police right away. But Uncle Jack had to see for himself. He found a laboratory where a scientist was lying there cut cleanly in half. The scientist still had his white coat on, and strangely, the door to the lab wasn't even locked. Something must have escaped. When Uncle Jack tried to call the police, he heard a chilling message. Sorry, the user you are calling is currently busy. Please try again later. That was definitely not normal. Emergency calls don't get busy signals. He had a sharp feeling that something was watching him from the shadows. Despite his courage, Uncle Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He quickly left the laboratory building, even going so far as to lock the door behind him. But even after he left the building, he still felt that gaze on him. It wasn't until he walked several blocks that the sensation finally disappeared. But something bizarre happened. He called me, telling me to leave immediately. Right after that eerie gaze returned. It seemed like it could track Uncle Jack's location through the phone signal. That was why Uncle Jack didn't want me to use my phone. He headed straight for the train station. While he was in the restroom, a man walked in. Uncle Jack felt like there was something off about him. When the man took off his mask, Uncle Jack saw I've had 2 mouths. Before the man could get close, Uncle Jack ran out as fast as he could. Luckily, the station was crowded enough for him to escape. But Uncle Jack never expected that thing would follow us onto the train. And everything that happened after, well, that's now. The bald man nodded. I spoke up. What exactly is that thing? The bald man glanced at me. No comment. Uncle Jack and I were escorted back to our original seats. But everything I had just heard left me shaken. I kept scanning the surroundings, watching everyone carefully. If anyone had 2 mouths or 3 eyes, that would be a dead giveaway. But if that thing could turn into a person, couldn't it evolve too? What if by now it couldn't be identified just by its appearance? A shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't help but feel like everyone around me was that monster, especially the people sitting expressionless, just staring blankly around. It made me want to run. Uncle Jack tried to comfort me. Relax. That thing's smart. With so many men in black, it probably won't make a move. Once we reach the final stop, everything will be fine. I tried to believe Uncle Jack. But before long, one of the men in black came from the other carriage, holding an empty meal tray. He scanned the passengers and called out, "Who's Megan?" A woman took off her mask. But the next moment, my scalp went numb. A woman sitting across from her let out a scream. The man in black pulled off the other woman's mask, and the 2 women had the same face. What's going on? I whispered to Uncle Jack. He shook his head, equally baffled. Could that thing have killed her and evolved? The man in black aimed his stun gun at both Megans. The first Megan immediately protested. What are you doing? I haven't done anything wrong. Don't scare me. The second Megan echoed her. What are you doing? I haven't done anything wrong. Don't scare me. The most shocking part was that their words came out almost simultaneously. Nobody could tell who the real Megan was. They both spoke again in unison. I'm not Megan. You've got the wrong person. The man in black frowned. One of you is that thing. It doesn't matter who you claim to be. Stand still and cooperate for the inspection. At the mention of inspection, both Megans nodded simultaneously. Okay, I trust you won't get it wrong. This time, even the men in black seemed a bit uncertain. But what surprised me the most was that they didn't act immediately. Clearly, they had strict discipline. I sighed. They were strong, but their methods weren't decisive enough. Some people even shouted, just stun both of them and sort it out later. Both Megans responded at the same time. No, I'm pregnant. There's a baby inside me. You can't do that. You'll hurt the child. The carriage fell into silence. Being strict wasn't the same as being heartless. In this kind of situation, no one knew what to do. Two of the men in black nodded. We won't act, but you have to cooperate with the inspection. Both women stood upright, behaving perfectly.